Okay, welcome, Councillor Steve Houghton, leader of Barnsley Council. Shall we just go around the table and introduce ourselves? I'm Andrew Cooper, I'm chairing this session. I'm a member of the Democracy Commission.
Gemma Wilson, Councillor, member of the Democracy Commission.
Andrew Marchington, also Kirklees Council, member of the Commission.
Thanks for coming to see us, Steve. I understand you've got a presentation for us.
Yeah.
So I'll hand straight over to you.
Okay. First thing I want to do is congratulate you for going through this exercise. What's become clear over the last 5 years, and it happened earlier in some other places, and in most places it's not happened at all, is a recognition that local government cannot carry on doing what it did. The money's gone, and we have to look at a whole new way of doing things. And I've been pushing the LGA a number of places about councils re-looking at the future of the council and the future of members. Because if members or councils think we can be what we were just a lot smaller, then that isn't going to work. And the future of local government, and the future of members in particular, will be up for grabs. People will be having a look at that and saying, do we really need all this? And so the question you have to ask yourselves, and we've asked it in my council, and I think it's got to be asked more broadly, is what's the point in councils? And more to the point today, what's the point of councillors? Because we can't answer those questions, we're in trouble. And as I say, because of austerity, which appears to be ongoing, we need a whole new redefinition of what we're here for. If we don't do that, then, as I say, I think someone will make decisions for us in due course. So well done for what you've done. As well as being a leader of Barnsley, I have another role, which is I'm the lead Labour member for improvement at the LGA. So we work with councils up and down the country. There's a team of all parties works on that. So if you do need any further help or assistance in this process, let me know, because we can bring some resources and assistance to that. Whether that's once you've made your decisions, spreading the word out to the groups and getting them on side, or just doing some more thinking around the whole thing, the LGA will give you any help and assistance you can get. Just give me a bell and we'll get something set up. But the purpose of today was to come and give you a view. We went through a similar process to this, although we didn't call it this, about 4 or 5 years ago, because in Barnsley we've been incredibly grant dependent, and we could see the grant disappearing, and we knew we couldn't carry on as was, so we've completely reordered the council during that period. And it's been tough. We've had some huge cuts to make, a lot of service losses, but at the same time I think we've done a lot of positive things for the borough, and we've certainly got members working in a different way to what they used to do. So, not saying the Barnsley model is suitable for you, these are very different communities, but nonetheless I think there are some interesting issues there that you might want to consider as you go forward as part of this. So the title of the presentation, which has been trotted up and down the northwest, which is where I do a lot of my work with councils, is challenges and opportunities facing places, councils, officers and councils, because it is very challenging, but it needn't all be doom and gloom. There's some positive things you can get out of this if we're prepared to be different, if we're prepared to change, but only if we're prepared to be different and we're prepared to change. As I say, you can't just carry on trying to do what you did on a smaller basis. And the questions we've been asking is, are we actually moving from corporate to community governance, and from leading and managing the council to leading and managing places? Because actually the question is, do you need all the trappings of members and officers and all the other things you used to have, given the council is shrinking, not just fiscally but in terms of its staff and its activities? And is the role for members now getting redirected somewhere else? In truth, members have always done both, but historically you could have said it's been something like 80% oversight of the council, 20% community. I would argue the reverse is becoming true now, and we need to start thinking about what that means and how you manage it. So the future, just to reiterate if you didn't already know it, austerity is ongoing. We've just looked at the next 3 years on our budget, more cuts, you'll be doing the same. Anyone waiting for the cavalry coming over the hill is very much mistaken. And even though the current government, because of Brexit, seems to be taking the brakes off a bit in terms of spend, lengthening the period, they want to balance the books, my guess is local government won't get much out of that. If there is a relaxation, police, NHS, schools, etc., are more likely to be the beneficiaries than local government. But nonetheless, We hope it does improve, but the reality is, whatever happens, the money ain't coming back. So don't try and hang on in there in the hope that one day it'll get better, because it won't. Around that, public expectations, have they changed over the last 5 years? Everybody's heard of the cuts, so presumably they've stopped asking the council for things. Well, not in my borough, they haven't. Probably asking even more than they used to do. So that's a difficult nut to crack. Can public expectations change? Can we shift the way the public thinks? Because one of the things we have to do is take demand out of the system. Because if we don't, we'll get overrun, particularly around areas such as adult social care. So, got to think differently. We've got devolution coming in, and we've got new forms of governance, although West Yorkshire hasn't quite signed a deal as we have in our part of the world. But at some point, I suspect there will be a devolution deal that you'll be involved in, and that'll have implications with new forms of governance. I suppose is what's developing now, and I think it is, a new relationship between citizen and the state going on from where we've been. And we're moving from paternalism, where we as a council, I come from Socialist Republic of South Yorkshire, cradle to the grave, we were proud of it. Still very proud in many ways because of the challenges that we had. But are we moving from that paternalism and dependency on us? And there's a big argument that says we created a lot of dependency to co-production. Actually, it's no longer about the council doing for you, it's the council doing with you, alongside you, if we're going to make changes. And clearly that's got implications for services, and it's got implications for members at the same time. On the budget cuts we've been through are the largest in history. Nothing comes close. Not the 80s under Margaret Thatcher or John Major. These are the biggest cuts anyone's ever seen. They're ongoing, and so what we are saying to people is you cannot just keep salami slicing bits off each service and hoping it'll survive. That isn't going to work. You've got to reorder things if this keeps going on and on. That means different approaches from services, some stopping, some being done less, some being done very differently, and that will impact on members as well. So are your current service models sustainable against that background? Can you just keep doing it? My argument would be probably not. And then we've got even more coming down the track, which may or may not hurt or help you, is the localisation of business rates by 2020, where councils effectively are being told, stand on your own 2 feet, survive off your council tax and business rate. That's great if you live down south in some of the more prosperous places. It's not great if you live in Barnsley because we don't have the business base. Don't know what Kirklees' position is around that, but it will be a challenge. And so the council is being forced onto a stronger economic focus to make sure we build up that business rate base so we can fund those public services. There will be a top-up and tariff system around, which will help a bit, but it isn't going to be the old equalisation many of us got used to when we had significant challenges of deprivation or ethnicity or wherever it might be, required extra public spend. That's not going to be around. So we've got to find ways and means of sustaining whatever future we have for ourselves. Whoops. Then on top, we've got devolution coming, whatever that means, where there's an expectation we're going to have more integrated working across councils. So not only are we going to be doing less, whatever we're doing, we might be doing with someone else. So there are going to be sub-regional strategies, and there's going to be sub-regional decision-making as well. So where does that leave us? Because we're doing a lot less. Decisions might be made somewhere else from where we've been used to. Where does that leave members? So is it devolution or evolution? Devolution, powers coming down, or is it evolution, powers going up to some kind of sub-regional structure? Because when you get into a shared services model with people, the power shifts into that integrated working, into the governance of that integrated working. So again, that can leave members feeling isolated, less influential than they used to be. Or is it both? Well, chances are it'll be both that you'll have to deal with. But either way, you've got new governance models being developed around you. And the question is, how do you fit into all those? On that governance around evolution, we're talking about elected mayors, combined authorities, local enterprise partnerships, executive boards, scrutiny at a regional level, audit at a regional level. This is all very different. And leaders will be up to their necks in all this, including me. Most members won't be seeing this going on. That doesn't mean to say it's been done for anything other than legitimate reasons, but it is hard to keep people engaged in all that. And so people will feel, members will feel their role increasingly, if you're not careful, becoming isolated. So what I'm saying is, have we got increasingly, and I think we have, not just here but across the country, members in a vacuum, and that vacuum's getting bigger. On the one hand, financial discretion is being reduced, service decision making is increasingly professionalised because of austerity, so members' influence over that is less. You know, how much political influence do members have over adult social care? Not much. The reality is it's professionally managed. We do oversight of that to make sure the officers are running it right, but we're not taking it off in radically different directions, whether you're in Barnsley, Huddersfield or Plymouth. You're not. Same with children's services. And actually, as you're being driven back to those core services, therefore, member discretion reduces accordingly. And actually, member discretion was always, how much money have you got? Because you want a bit of this or a bit of that or a bit of the other, someone's got to spend something on it or give some officer time to it. If that's going because of austerity, then that member discretion is diminishing at the same time. On the other hand, if we're sharing services and we've got devolution, decisions are going somewhere else that are left. They're going to sub-regional bodies or joint bodies or even into the private sector if you're privatising services. So the danger is what's left in the middle is members saying, what am I going to do? And you have to ask yourselves the question, how many members do you need? Because people are asking it already. And when the Boundary Commission comes around and does its reviews, its first question now is, why do you need all these councils? Have you got an answer to that? Because if you haven't, they're going to say we could do this with a lot less. CLG look at council staff ratios, because if we are just corporate governance, we've halved the size of the corporate body in Barnsley. Do we need the same amount of members to oversee it? And the answer is no, we don't. We do need those members, and I'll come to that in a while for other things, but in terms of that corporate governance, the reality is you know, and the government knows that, and we know that. So we have to redefine and reorder the member role to make it worthwhile and have an impact. You will still need members for planning, licensing, the cabinet and so on. But the question is, do you need 69 of those, or do we need 63 in my borough? Because much of the work now is done by the cabinet anyway. It's the truth, performance management, so on and so forth. So it is a big question about the future of, do we need all these councils at one level? But certainly do we need all these members at another if they're operating in this kind of vacuum? You know, and I'll say to members, you know, how long can you go on to the public and say, yes, thank you for your inquiry or your complaint or the thing that you want doing, but I'm sorry there's no money. Yeah, great idea, I'm sorry there's no money. Really would like to help you, but I'm sorry there's no money. I know that's really important, but I'm sorry there's no money. After you've said that 20 times, someone's going to come back and say, well, what's the point in you then? What's the point? We have got to have a different answer other than there's no money. Because actually those communities still need help. The problems haven't gone away with austerity in many ways. The problems have got worse. But our ability to help people in those problems has been diminished because of austerity. And so we've got to find new ways of helping communities resolve those issues, and that's where the member role becomes incredibly important. In the end, I can make you an argument for more members, not less. I wouldn't, because that wouldn't be very popular. But the reality is, I can make a strong argument why you do need your members. But the point I'm trying to make in all this is, it isn't doing what you've always been doing, because there isn't the workload there anymore for that, as the council shrunk and reduced a lot of its activity. So, what is the future role for the council? What is future council? What does it look like? Every council in the country should be asking this question of itself. Well, we've looked at it, and there's a lot of things going on. First of all, the council will still be a provider of service. No matter what, it will still provide some services. It will provide less, it might provide different, but it will provide a core offer. But that core offer is going to be a lot smaller than historically it's ever been. And increasingly it's been shrunk back to areas like adult social care and kids, because those are the key things you've got to do. It will be doing a lot less activity everywhere else. The council is the leadership of the borough. There's no getting away from that. Members have a mandate. Value that mandate. No one else other than MPs gets elected. That has a value no one else can match in your borough, and that gives you a legitimacy no one else has. There are other community leaders, they are incredibly important, but they don't have the electoral mandate. And you should value that, we should all value that and not lose it. So from that you get this opportunity to give a vision for the future of the borough, to give a sense of direction for the future of the borough, what kind of place you want it to be, where you want it to go, but equally for local members to do that on your ward basis, to do that in your villages and your communities and your townships. And given that Kirklees is a bit like Barnsley, you have lots of those, there are opportunities there for local leadership to come to the fore if you do that right. So that leadership and direction, that vision, isn't just about the borough overall. It's about some of those places and communities within that borough. How are you going to exercise that in future? If you're not already doing it, you may be doing that. The council will be a regulator going forward. No one else will be doing licensing for taxis and so on, pubs. No one else will be doing planning applications, unless this gets really radical. So members will still be doing that, and that is an important role. But it's also about managing behaviour in more general terms. You know, it's antisocial behaviour, whether that's littering or crime or other things. The council has a strong role in community safety and other things. How does that role play out then? That isn't necessarily you having your own private police force. But if you're anything like us, you will have staff engaged on community safety, working with the police and others and so on. So regulating behaviour, setting positive behaviours for the community at large is an important role for the council to do. And some of that is civic as well as, you know, sort of technical and legal things. Very often I'm a big fan of civic activity, because actually that is about showing responsibility and good behaviour to the community, and this is how you should be doing things. Historically, the civic stuff has tended to be, well, it's a few functions and do's around the mayor. Actually, the member role in the civic sense is incredibly important. The council will be increasingly a facilitator. It won't always be doing things because it can't. So it's getting other people to do it, whether that's other public agencies or whether that's the community itself increasingly. And that will matter. And it'll be a partner, working alongside those agencies, working alongside communities and individual citizens. So how are you going to do that? Have you geared yourself to be able to do that? Or are you still trying to run services like you always did? Because if you are, you'll be missing opportunities around some of this stuff. So future role of the council around those things. Is the council thinking about, particularly when it delivers services, how those fit into some of those particular issues? What about assurance and accountability? What I'm arguing in future will be we're going to have a more diffuse model of governance. You know, we had council services, committees, making decisions, professional officers, done. Not anymore. You'll still have some of that, of course. But increasingly, when things are being done by the private sector, being done by community groups, being done by different organisations, how does the governance of that work, and where do members fit? How do we make sure resources are being spent well? How do you know if you give a community group 10 grand that they spent it right? Problem with this is it becomes very difficult, because particularly when we're talking about community organisations and we want more from them, too tight arrangements stifle innovation. You can't have every scout group to have its own audit committee. You can't have a football club to have its own governance committee. It's not going to work like that. So, but too loose arrangements where you give them the money and hope for the best ain't right either. How do you know they've not run off and had a month's holiday with it? So somehow you've got to start thinking about, if we are having different approaches to service delivery, to how we manage communities, you want more people engaged, how does the governance of that work so it doesn't strangle a lot of the opportunity that's there, but equally still public money. It's not being wasted. And there's a balance to be struck. Services changing have got to change. There are less services, but they'll be more targeted to ones who need them most. That's inevitable. What is that effective core offer we're going to give? Do we know that? Have we worked it out? Or are we just cutting every year and hoping to balance the books? What is it we're about? What matters most? And some of that won't just be about what people call statutory. What they really mean is mandatory services, like children's and adults. You'll have to do that and do them well. No if, buts or maybes. But what else do we want to do? You don't have to mend the roads. You don't have to cut the grass. You don't have to sweep the streets. Nothing in law says you've got to do it. You have to have a library service, but it doesn't tell you how big. One library it could be a library service. What is that core offer going to be? And working that through and looking at the projections financially, you need to start thinking about where we will be in 2020, 2025. What sort of shape will the council be around that, and therefore what sort of governance will it need? As a council, in terms of services, increasingly personalisation and choice for service users. We know that in adult social care that's been growing. It's certainly gone huge in my borough. Equally for children, we're pushing the health side to have much more people in control of their own service needs and having their own personalised budgets around that, where they can determine how things are done for them. What happens with personalisation, though, they don't always choose the council. They choose somebody else. I mean, increasingly we've seen out in adult social care this huge growth in personal assistance, where people are saying, I've got Fred Smith from down the road, he comes and helps me, and Fred actually is helping 10 people. That's his job. There's a lot of that going on. That is reshaping the way services have to be delivered for people. You know, the way we will always do it for you and you'll get what we give you. That's over. It's about very different services. Can we do that on a more community basis? That's a lot harder, isn't it? Because communities don't always know what they want. Now, if they do, we get different views. So can we give communities more say over what they get and where that comes from? Because I guess in Kirklees it is like my borough, very different places with very different needs, very different aspirations. Can we somehow organise ourselves in a way beyond the core offer that we have to do for everyone? Can we allow some flexibility so that, you know, Dewsbury can do something different to Holmfirth, to wherever that, Huddersfield, to wherever it might be? Are we prepared for that, or is that too politically difficult? But we have to start thinking about it, because if we don't, we won't engage those communities.
Sure.
They only engage, if you're lucky, at a place-based level. More often than not, it's on a street or an estate-based level where people really are prepared to do a little bit. If you're looking to get the public to do more, you're going to have to broaden out and be a lot more flexible. So working alongside other communities and other providers to meet local needs. And maybe should we stop doing for people and give them the money to do it themselves? Invest in communities to solve their own problems, use local businesses, social enterprises, the community and volunteer sector, parish councils. Should we give them it? You do it. Here, here's the money, get on with it. Are we prepared for some of that or not? Or do we want to keep it all in the central position? There are no right and wrong answers here, because places are very different and some places can cope with things better than others. But we need to be thinking about that, because, as I say, as the core offer shrinks, places will get left behind if we haven't got an alternative to give them. So, what's the future role for councillors then? Well, first of all, I come back to that democratic mandate that I mentioned earlier on. Local leaders of their places and of behaviours in their place, setting that sense of direction, whether that's an estate, a village, a town, a borough, whatever it might be. I think that's an incredibly important role for members to set that and be engaged in that and to lead that process. That is much more important than sitting in the town hall and committee. It's much more difficult as well, and it's much more time consuming. But it is the thing that will make much more of a difference going forward. Councillors being problem solvers, finding answers locally. So when they ring you up, say, Councillor, can you do this? Are you prepared to say, no, I can't. The council can't. We don't do it anymore. What? I'm not voting for you then. Well, actually, but what we can do is this. Good example, my ward colleague Joe. This is a classic one, this, isn't it? Guy rings up and says, fly tipping bottom half street, get it shifted. Now, we used to have a 24-hour flight, you know, for the days when we had money, 24 hours, go. Now they have to wait a couple of weeks because we haven't got the staff, we've lost 50% of the workforce, and it takes 2 weeks to get around to it. So Joe says, well, it's 2 weeks, I'm not waiting 2 weeks, I want it done now. So Joe says, I'll tell you what, me and you will go and shift it. What? I pay my rate, my council tax. But the reality is, increasingly, that's what we're going to have to do. And our members prepared to do it. You know, I'm sure you must do some of this, but getting our members out litter picking, getting our members out with community activities. We run a Love Where You Live campaign in Barnsley, 10,000 volunteers. But it is members at the heart of that. It's no good telling the public to do it if you're not going to do it. It's hard stuff. It's not actually what I thought I was getting on the council for. How far can we take some of those processes around all that? Members negotiating between people, between groups, between agencies for the community. That requires a new set of skills to manage all those competing interests. In a sense, as leader, you get to do that across your borough, but can members do that in their wards or whatever subsections you're operating on? Influencing to get outcomes. People always think power comes from being in control. Actually, some of the most successful politicians I've seen didn't have power, but they had influence. They could get things done. They knew how the system worked. They knew how to manage the system. They knew how to get people to do things for them. What about influencing skills? It says presenting there, it should say representing, but sometimes it is presenting to the council and others what we need in my community, what the issues are, getting that out there so people recognise it. So when the council takes decisions, or the police take decisions, or the hospital takes decisions, or whatever, they've got what you were telling them about your area in mind. You're not getting left behind. The most difficult bit, though, and in many ways the most important bit going forward, is building participation. How do we get active communities? That is not easy. It's no good sending members out there and say, get an active community, see what happens. I'll tell you what, not very much. Because volunteering costs money, time, effort, resources, staff. It isn't free. It's very often less costly than big services, but it ain't free. So if you want to build participation in communities and volunteering, you're going to have to pay for it. It isn't free. The question is, how far can you go? How far are you prepared to go to do that around some of this? And you'll need to organise yourselves in a way that allows that to happen. So what do we need? I think we need new governance models around the member role. When councils structure their member structures, historically, and we do it a bit as well, they do it around services. Actually, if members increasingly haven't got influence over those services other than oversight and performance management, what are you doing that for? Build your member governance model around those roles of members so that members can fulfil them effectively, rather than on a sort of traditional committee. You'll still have planning, you'll still have licensing, you'll still have a cabinet. Of course you. But beyond what you really got to have, what else can we do in a governance model that allows those member roles to be developed and fulfilled? Because that's where the future of most members will be. And if we don't do that, they'll stay in that vacuum I talked about. Could we do, this is double devolution within councils, are we prepared to put things out there where local members, either as groups or in participation with others, start taking more decisions about what happens in their community? There are different models around that. We've got a model, Oldham's got a different model to us. So you're surrounded on either side here by stuff that's being done. You can go and look at those, and it could be a mix of the two, but whatever, there's opportunities there. It's about being transparent in your information processes. A lot of the stuff we want to do won't work if people haven't got the right information in the right way, in the right time. Can't keep, mushroom culture don't work. You've got to be much more open about stuff. And that's hard, politically, when you've got some tough decisions to make. No one wants to be unpopular, least of all me. But sometimes, actually, being open about it and fronting it was probably the best way of dealing with it. Because in the end, it always comes out anyway. Member development. What are you going to do on that? Most councils cut it out. Easy cuts. Only councils cut out member development. Big mistake. Members are taking crucial decisions about the future of this place. And you're not going to invest in it. You'd invest in your senior officers. You're not going to do it in members. Now, there's got to be a balance here. It's not about 20 million quid member development programmes. Something has to be done to support members, particularly if you're going to give them those new roles. Sending them out the door naked won't do it. They need new skills, they're going to need resources, they're going to need staff, they're going to need money. How are we going to develop members going forward? We need councillors, I think, more than ever now, because you are going to be filling the gaps that the officers who've gone have left. You're not going to be providing the service in the way they did, but you're going to be finding ways of filling those gaps so that those community needs can be met in different ways. A hugely important role. But chucking people out the door and saying get on with it ain't going to be enough. You've got to put a governance structure around it and a resource structure around it to make it happen. And that will cost you, again, depending on how tight money is, how brave you're prepared to be. But we do need councillors more than ever. But the roles are increasingly different. So what does this mean for Kirklees? So I would say to you, don't just look at democracy, look at the whole point of the council and what the council is going to be doing and what your vision for the future is. What are your key priorities around that? How are you going to support the member role in future and all those different things we've talked about? How are you going to change that relationship with the community? Are you or not? I don't know. You know this place, I don't. How are you going to increase joint working and community participation? What are those new ways of working both as officers and members? You know, it's no good providing a service in the same way. We need the services to be about co-production rather than just going and doing it for people. Actually, that's probably good practice anyway. But increasingly, it's not about staff going out and saying, we're the professionals. You get what you get. We know what we're talking about. You don't. Don't want any of that. It's about services, and therefore the services being delivered in a way that increases community participation and community resilience and reduces that dependency. That's what we're trying to do in my borough. It's a long haul. 100 years of culture does not dissipate because Steve Houghton says one day in his office, why are I doing this? Most of them haven't heard it. So it's chipping away. But it is about changing the message. And then you'll need good communications around all that to say what we're about and what can or can't be done with it. But it's so for all time is difficult and we're making cuts. Actually, it could really be quite exciting, really quite stimulating. Some real big opportunities there, but it is different. And it ain't sat in the town hall. Most of it, it's been out there somewhere else. So, you know, what are the opportunities you can do and provide around stuff with that? As I say, there's different models out there. If you want to come to Barnsley and see ours, may not work in Kirklees, a very different demography to what we have. Having said that, some of it might. You could go to Oldham, they've got a different model. Have a look at them. There are other bits and pieces up and down the country where people are trying to change the way members think, behave, and get those roles in. And actually, it's harder. It's more time consuming, but I think in many ways it's more rewarding. And if you want to be party political about the whole thing, it's also how you get elected. Because you don't get elected sat in the town hall.
Didn't work for me.
So it don't always work. Sometimes governments do things swampers. But having said that, you know, it's a big opportunity for councillors to do things differently. And I would encourage you to do that. So I come back to where I started. I think it's great that you're doing something. Okay. Not enough councils are doing that. They're sat there hoping for the cavalry or the cuts will stop and somehow we can plod along. We're missing out. There's some big opportunities. Austerity is difficult, but it doesn't all have to be done at all.
Okay.
Hope that was helpful.
It was helpful. Thanks very much. It really did sort of cover set a wide scene. And so can I ask a question before I sort of throw it open to the rest of the panel? New councillors, the actual people who are going to do this role. We can look at our own councils, you can look at your council, we can look at our council, we can see individuals there who will not fit easily into this new mould. And perhaps they will, over time, disappear. But in terms of the new people that we're looking, how do we sell this job, because it effectively is a job to people, and where do we fish for those people? Where do we hope to find these people from, these amazing people?
The first point I would say is new councillors coming in are very often the easiest ones to deal with, because they come in with a blank sheet of paper. Very often it's the ones that's been around like me, 30 years and grizzled, and what we're doing that for? And we always do like this, and why do we have to change? So actually it's new members bring a new opportunity. First point I think we have to do is to be clear about what that role is.
Yeah.
Most people ain't got a clue what being on the council is. They know they're our councillors, and they know they, inverted commas, run the council. That's it. If you ask people out there if you got that as an answer, you do pretty well, really. Actually, as we all know, councillors' roles are much more than that. So we've got to get into a position where we've defined what those roles are going forward, whatever is applicable to Kirklees, and get out there and sell that as a positive and something worth doing, because I think a lot of people now just look at councils making cool food and all that grief. Actually, there can be much more of an opportunity here for people around it and describe it and promote it and sell it. And we don't as councillors, to be frank.
Yeah.
There's an issue about, let's be frank, the parties, for the most part, selecting candidates. So the parties needing their own recruitment processes to look for people who are going to be much more in tune with that role, and not all want to be leader, because anybody wants to be leader, only me. Not all can do that role, but find people who are willing to engage in some of that stuff, and show that it is rewarding and can make a difference. But you have to support that role and put some cash and some money and time and effort into it to make it rewarding. So they need to see that. But if they can see that, they may want to do things. And I think increasingly, as we try to build up community participation, you are looking at a lot of those community groups and community organisations, to be frank. I mean, in my borough, historically, we look to the trade union movement. It's Barnsley. Who provided NUM, and everybody else provides your councils. That's gone. It's been gone years. And what we have seen increasingly is people coming in from community organisations and community groups, and the parties of all kinds have been trying to recruit from that, because they're up for that in a sense already, aren't they, if you see what I mean. What we've got to show them, though, is by taking that next step, they can be even better supported, better at it, and get better outcomes by doing it. But what I will say, and I will say this every time, is that community development, that increased participation needs to be built around members. Not instead of members, above members, below members, with members at the heart of it. Because that's what the mandate does. Now, members have got to step up to that, but it's not about... I've seen too many area-based, community-based structures fall apart, become a battle between members and other things that's going on. Build it around your members and say to your members, you've got to step up and do this. So you do have that legitimacy to take that leadership role. It isn't just about you. You've got to work with those groups, those other community leaders, but you do have the leadership mandate, and I'll defend that as an elected member every time.
Okay. Councillor Marchington, Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, I mean, obviously different roles, but different councils might have different skills, and actually there's different roles to do. So there's the front line of community engagement stuff. You need people with decision-making skills. Sometimes there needs to be a bridge between the two. Are we looking, I mean, you're going to encourage a range of roles rather than actually a council trying to be all things to all people?
Well, yeah, I think some will specialise in some things and not others. You know, you're going to have a leader, you're going to have a cabinet. Some members want to migrate to that as their future. But you're only going to have, 9 or 10 out of 69 doing that.
Yeah, sure.
So it's getting for the rest a positive role out of it. And certainly in our area-based structures, members are doing decision-making. They're doing representation from those areas into the council and to others. They're doing community participation. A lot of it is around community participation. They're doing grant giving. They're commissioning services in my borough, members in their local area. So they now commission.
How small a unit are you going down to, though?
Well, it depends. There isn't a right and wrong here, so you do what you feel works. What we said is we're not going to divvy it up nice and neat because the communities aren't nice and neat.
Yeah.
So we created 6 area councils, of which 2 are just 2 wards each. So the Dearn, which is on the eastern periphery of the borough, is just 2 wards, and that's where our biggest elements of deprivation are. And on the west of the borough, which some of you might know, is Penistone, and that's just 2 wards. So 2 of our area councils are just 2 wards. 3 of them are 4 wards, and 1 of them, which is around the town centre, is 5 wards. So they're operating in sort of different scales in those terms. But what we've done then is to say to those area councils are about delivering local priorities. So one of the roles on that is influencing the council what we need to be doing in your area. So the meetings they have is about trying to shape what the council does and performance manage the council in their area. We empty the bins under the grass, not very often these days, but whatever we do. But also we gave them a commissioning budget, so they could commission activity that they thought was important for their area. And we said to them, as we reduce the council, you might want to backfill that with your commissioning budget. So you might want to buy some of that service back from someone because you think it's important.
How big is your commissioning
I'm going to
budget?
tell you that in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Or equally, you might want to do something completely new because of your area. You've got this problem. It's never been dealt with. You want to do that. The commissioning budget for each area council is the equivalent of. It's not 4, but it's the equivalent of 100,000 per ward. So the smallest area council has got a 200,000 commissioning budget. The biggest one's got 500,000. And what each of them have to do is to set out a local plan of priorities and why, and then commission against it. And so that comes to 2.1 million, I think, across the borough in cash terms. Below that area structure, we want more community engagement. So each ward has to have, with 21 wards, has to have a ward alliance. And that ward alliance has to be the 3 members plus a minimum of 6 community reps. And that ward alliance gets a 10,000 budget to spend on community-based activity in the ward. The area council can devolve further to the ward alliance if they so wish. So that 10k can become 20, 30k if they want to build it up. That's up to the area council. The area council is just members, the ward alliance is members and community leaders. And actually we've had much, so the community development stuff's coming through the ward alliance activity increasingly. On top of that, so that takes us to 2.3 million, and then we've got in each area council at least 2 full-time staff. So you've got 12 officers working on the community activity around them, plus some others working in the centre to coordinate the whole thing. In total, it comes to about another £1 million worth of staff. So we're talking about 3 to 3.5 million. I have to know. Expenditure of the council based on area-based, supporting the member role out there in their communities and their wards and so on. And we've protected that while we've cut everything else.
So you've been doing that for a while?
We've been doing it for 3 years in terms of cash. We did it for a year as a dry run without the money, just to get it all set up and make sure they all knew what we were doing.
What's Barnsley's population?
240,000.
240.
I was actually looking at when you were talking about the members' role, you have some members, you mentioned perhaps newer members, this is the norm to them, this is the way of working, we're perhaps, I was going to say adaptable, but not necessarily adaptable because you've got anything comparable. But members that have been sitting for quite a while, do you actually feel that those members were accepting of the changes, or did you just think it seemed like another meeting attitude?
We used to have area-based structures before, and we scrapped them because they became just morning shops, to be honest. When people come on and had a morn at the council and went away, they didn't really do anything. And then they got politicised at well, which made it even worse. So in the end, what we weren't doing is building up community participation. What I don't think any council needs, if I'm being frank, but what I certainly don't need in Barnsley is a community committee telling the council what to do. So we know what we need to do. People moan at me all the time. I know what problems are, and members' role is to do that, and that's why you elect them. What I really need the community to do is to do things that they're not doing now, and actually through participation take decisions. So the easiest example is if we get a Friends of the Park, you decide what colour tulips you want, not me. You're planting them, you decide. So am I making the point? It's a very simplistic one, but you make decisions through your activity, not through having a committee. I don't know the committees more than the council. No, forget it. We've had plenty of those in the past. And as the council shrinks, we can't satisfy them because there's not anything there. We need those community people to work with us. So if you're going on the Ward Alliance with the members, you've got to guarantee so many days a year volunteering. So you can't just come on and sit at the Alliance meeting. You've got to come on and do some work as well.
And does that apply to the councils?
Oh, aye.
Right.
Some are better than others.
Sure.
That's the reality. But yeah, the expectation is that it's no good saying in public, get out there and litter pick. I've had to have my overalls on. Get out and do it with them. I have to confess not as often as I'd like because of what I do, but for most of the members, you've got to get out there and do it. And so there's lots of different stuff going on. So some of the money gets spent on tools, equipment, getting people in and doing things. I don't know if I've answered your question yet. So, did the members take to it or not?
Yeah.
Initially, a lot of scepticism because we'd had previous area-based structures that nobody liked. What we're doing this for again. So it took some convincing what we was going to do would be better than what we had before, which is why we took a year as a dry run to show them it would look and feel different. We've given members a lot of training, a lot of support on this. And the fact that members were actually making decisions, i.e. on those commissioning budgets, engaged them. So they weren't just doing the donkey work, a bit of litter picking and all that. They were actually taking decisions about their area because they were commissioning activity for their area. And that gave them a sense of importance and it gave a sense of value. If you want to value members, you've got to spend some money on them. Because the council spends money on what it thinks is important, doesn't it? Doesn't it?
Why?
So if you're not spending on members, you always don't think they're important.
Look at offices.
There are some stark questions here you've got to ask yourselves. Now, it isn't about spending billions on members and nothing on services. There's a balance to be struck here, concepts. But nonetheless, so we've spent on member development, we've spent giving members budgets to spend, through commissioning. We've put staff into those areas to help members do that community work. Because you do need that. They can't just do it on their own. They're going to need some help. And so the staff have been great as well around that. And the pressures on budgets, we're all under that pressure. But we've had some great outcomes from it.
So you're 3 years in, still early days. How do you measure success? How do you know that it's having an impact? Are people there that, Barnsley Council, absolutely marvellous?
Yeah,
4 years ago, I'd have said it was the most awful council I've got. Maybe the best council I've got, but also
no, probably the first one actually.
So how do you think that the communities that are served sort of buy into this, really buy into it, as opposed to it just being those folks who are involved?
First of all, it's not a miracle.
Yeah.
So we aren't suddenly turned from Barnsley hasn't become Henley-on-Thames. No. Still Barnsley. Not that I'd want to be either, but there you go. What we do is we performance manage it just like we performance manage any other area of the council. So I come back to that diffuse governance and how do you make sure you're spending the money well.
Yeah.
So each area council not only has to have an area plan and a commission plan, it has to have performance management against that. So what did we get against the outcomes you set for yourself? So we weren't setting those from the centre, but we like to think they will align those to the overall aims of the borough. It's not that difficult. But it's performance management. So for example, how many more volunteers have we got? How many more volunteering hours have we got? And so on. That's an easy one.
So is that some self-evaluation?
So,
but
Well, the staff in there are partly responsible for bringing forward the performance management of that. So we can say, if you spent 10 grand, yeah, we got 500 volunteers as a result of that. And so on. It is difficult to measure a cultural shift, which is really where we're trying to get to.
Because that performance management's the council measuring what the council's doing.
Well, it's measuring what the community's doing with the council's money.
Okay, but it's not the community's view and opinion.
Well, the community's view and opinion comes through the ward alliances, so they feed into the area councils what they think the local priorities should be. Okay. So if you're in 2, that's easier than if you're in 5, because you've got some competing interests. But so there is an input there. When the area council set those plans, the ward alliances are having a look at those and saying, yeah, they look about the right issues for us or not. So it ain't just the members feeding in, you've got the community reps feeding in on that, which is important, I think. It is important for the council to continue with staff and public perception surveys about what we're doing. Do you still think we're any good or not? And to feed that back into the loop and as part of the performance management process as well. So even though with the abolition of the audit commission and the rest, we still do our public perception surveys, find out where the public think we're doing well, not so well, and so on. I'm sure you must do something similar. We're not having votes every week about should we be doing this and should we that. No, because you just waste time and effort and money on that. We think by and large we know our borough and we know those communities out of those processes and what needs to be done. We're just going to make sure we're doing it well. No magic bullets, some of that. But it has been, I have to say, it has been pretty well received. And, we now run awards evenings around all the volunteer and stuff. We did one in our area council last week. We got about 200 or 300 people in the room giving them all a certificate and a badge, and it was great. And they don't want pay. They're just quite happy to hear someone say thank you. Thanks very much for what you've done.
Yeah. So have your cabinet members got a role coordinating some of that activity across?
No, keep them out. One cabinet member actually has responsibility for communities, so ultimately that community's area comes under her jurisdiction. Right. But it is not for her to tell them how to do it. It's in a sense, it's just general oversight that things working well and ticking along. But we haven't given cabinet members a role there. No, so there is core council, which the cabinet's running. Yeah, all members are running, of course. but the cabinet's running. But then there are the area councils, which the members in those areas are running. Are you with me? Now we keep an eye on it, make sure we're not doing anything illegal or untoward that we shouldn't be doing.
It's just where what he said, there might be an issue about when core council is reducing, area councils are picking stuff up, but that's just purely up to them. It's
up to them whether they're doing it. It is a bit of a tension, because the area councils are feeling they're having more and more to pick up as we shrink the core council year on year, and that's true. All I say to them is, you've got the money, you decide what matters, not me. So your decision, but bear in mind, you can't do everything. Welcome to being leader of the council.
So we're very careful about what the core council...
So we're very careful about the relationships between the two and making sure we understand where they're coming from. And getting good information from core services about an area is important. Right. Do you actually know what highways do in your area? Do you know what social services does in your area? Do you know what your grass cutting schedules are or your litter picking schedule? Do you know? Because if the area council want to do more of or different of, they've got to know that spec, haven't they? So sharing that information, service information with the area councils is important so they can do their job on an informed, but if that's what they want to do, on an informed basis. I mean, some of them have done it completely. We've gone, I was saying earlier, we have gone completely berserk on enforcement. Every area council went priority. So we commissioned a private firm from Leeds, Kingdom, and we...
on litter is this? Or?
On litter, yeah. Right, okay. Dog filing and litter and now car parking, we've extended it to. And they all commissioned on that, and we went something from like 60 environmental enforcement notices a year to 3,000 the year after. They can litter like nobody's business in Barnsley, I tell you. And that's going up all the time, so we've got them out enforcing public. That was great, fine. And if they don't pay the fines, they're in court. That goes up from whatever it is, 80 quid to 200 quid, and we put the names in the paper.
I think that could probably do with some investigation from Kirklees.
So that was one area members got big on.
Supportive.
And that was their choice.
Sure.
So they said that matters to us. Actually, it's carrot and stick, isn't it? We want the community to do things and behave, and we'll encourage you. And if you don't, we'll fine you. We've never done anything like that before. But that was purely local members saying that matters.
Good. If members are okay, I just want to move on to combined authorities. The invisible area. I mean, people may think that the council sometimes is a difficult body to understand and get involved with. How do we actually make the work of the combined authority relevant to communities as well as members as well? To be quite honest, what is other things that should be done? I mean, at the moment we've got a transport strategy, and I think it's fairly invisible. I think for West Yorkshire.
My answer to that question is not easily.
Right.
Is the reality, because the mayoral model, the governance models around devolution are much more about accountability than they are about engagement. So mayoral model about every 4 years, here's the mayor, you know who he or she is, and get on and vote for them or not. It doesn't necessarily give you engagement, does it? And that it is more difficult when you take it up to that next tier. So the first point I would say is you need to build up your own governance models within the boroughs so that they can feed into that. If you haven't got a model that engages communities, how do communities feed into anything other than right to the mayor or right to the CA?
So do you do that?
Well, we've got the governance model in place, so there are bits of my borough that can feed into both the council, what they think is important, and we can take that knowledge into the CA and elsewhere. Because in a sense, the CA, ours is 9 councils. Each council's vying in its own way for resources and what it wants. So communities in your borough are telling you what they want, so you are reflecting that when you go to the CA. It's an indirect engagement rather than a direct engagement in those terms. Again, indirectly getting scrutiny right. Whatever scrutiny model you put in place.
You mean at the combined authority level?
At the combined authority level.
Okay.
So having a scrutiny committee, which they all have to have anyway, but making sure that's working effectively, and that the scrutiny committee has got the information it needs. Again, coming from each council and whatever subsections you've got into there, so they know what the issues are. But also engaging your council scrutiny processes in it. Get them in. So I chair the CA in Sheffield City Region. Go to councils and be scrutinised as part of that process. And again, if you go to different. I go to the others, yeah. I've been to the council meetings or to the scrutiny meeting, usually council meeting actually. You get everybody there. But you need some kind of structure model to utilise. So if you want the public in that, there's nothing to stop one of our area councils getting me in as chair of the CA. They get me in anyway, but you've got something you can hang it around. It's much more difficult if you haven't got structures aren't an answer to everything, but having something where the community are engaged you can go to, rather than just a public meeting when there's a crisis, which you will do, but having something more general that gives input I think is important. Part of that, having appropriate mechanisms for service users. So it isn't always about the wider public. Sometimes it's about delivering adult skills or transport. Where's transport service users fit into that? Have you got some kind of model there where people can feed into the CA or elsewhere? So there isn't a nice, easy thing here that says you get millions of people suddenly engaging. They won't. No,
I fully understand. And I'm asking a question which I wouldn't dare ask. I think I would dare ask our council actually, because I'd just be interested in your view. So if you were to go to Barnsley members and say to them, tell me 2 things, or even 3 things, that the combined authority does. How many of them do you think roughly would be able to give you some sort of coherent answer?
Most of them, I think, in the sense of giving you a headline. Yeah. What they won't be able to give you is the detail that sits under the headline. Right. So they'll say it does transport. They'll know it does skills. They ought to know we've had umpteen devolution presentations to them by now, ain't they? They ought to know some of the other, but they'll know transport, they'll know skills, they'll know it's got money to invest in the economy. So they will know those headlines.
Okay.
Some will be better informed, because we've 2 of our members sit on the scrutiny committee. The cabinet members know obviously know a lot more.
Sure.
Some of the new members a lot less, but they will know the headlines.
Okay. I'd be really interested in our authority if we just went round and just said, tell me 3 things that they do, you know, how many blank places we can. Right, okay.
While you're here, that's brilliant, thanks for that. LGA stuff. Role for local government in holding central government to account?
I think the LGA has to do more of that. So it's not easily done through individual councils. You need the corporate body of the LGA to do that. And actually, I think it has got better at it over the years, but I'm not saying it can't do more of that. Can you do that individually as councils? That's incredibly difficult, I think. MPs struggle to do it, not alone councillors. So I don't think there's any nice, neat solutions there. There'll be an opportunity through the devolution stuff and the structures there to hold central government to account more as well, in the sense of, yes, central government's giving us powers and things to do that it would have done, but in terms of the more strategic shaping of the nation, to input into that through the devolution models will be helpful at the same time. But I think you are looking for the LGA and local government bodies to do more around that.
If more of us are moving into this new model, we are really effectively representing our communities, our wards around, say, health, education, safety, which don't always come within our remit. I think there's a potential for us to be more real, but that electoral mandate to say this is what our communities think through LGA coming together and actually saying some of what's happening nationally is not appropriate.
Yes, I think there is that opportunity through the LGA. Equally, I think you need to be doing some of that locally, holding partners to account, whether that's through a scrutiny process, whatever model you've got, between different scrutiny models, or if you have local governance models, how do you engage some of the partners in that? Because they're operating on behalf of central government, the CCG, the Hospital Trust, the police, fire services, whatever they might be. There's an opportunity to pull them into some of that, saying what you're doing, maybe not on big strategic matters, but on what they're doing for you locally.
I think we do some of that. It's just a concern that sometimes they seem to be in the same straitjacket.
Oh, well, they are. I mean,
we are.
None of this is easy. They're getting cut just as much as we are. But at least trying to make sure when they're making cuts, they're not just salami slicing, they're taking into account community need and maybe reshaping the way their services work. In truth of it, just like we're having to do the same.
A question about parish councils. You've obviously got your own devolved structures. You've got the bodies which link with that. Where do parish councils fit in? Are they useful bodies? Do they get in the way of structures? Can they bring money to the table?
It depends on the parish council, doesn't it? I suppose.
Okay.
Is the honest answer to that. We have 17. We abolished one recently. We have 16 parish councils. No, the parish clerk ended up with 3 years in jail.
Not enough.
Not to be recommended. Did make for quite a number of Channel 4 TV programmes. Don't go there. So that's gone. But we have 16 parish councils, of which 14 of them are in the 2 Penistone wards, which is good news or bad news, depending where you live in the borough. What we do on our area base, on the area councils, is to try and develop a relationship with them so that we could co-fund or co-work together. So we, it's more them than it is me, on activity. And they have places on the ward alliances as well. Okay. So we try and integrate where we can do stuff together.
So do they raise precepts and such like?
They do, yeah. Penistone one's quite a big one. The Penistone town one. A lot of small ones, which are really small.
Dibley.
Penistone, but the Penistone town one is quite a big budget.
So is the whole of that area council parish? Is the whole of those 2 wards?
Yeah, that area really council has 14 parish councils, and then my area council has 2 parish councils within, although they are within 1 ward. but that's 2 parish councils, which is easy to... I mean, some of them, to be frank, are very, very small.
Sure.
But the Penistone one is quite substantial.
It's good. I mean, the Derbyshire, we've got 400 in Derbyshire. Some of them down to 300-400 people.
Yeah.
Right, they run the cinema. Do they run the cinema?
They're on cinema in Penistone and various other things, yeah. So that's quite a substantial operation.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, we do try and work with parish councils and get that relationship right where that exists.
So that'd be interesting to look at, because when we're looking at parishing, it's having a consistent. So to actually have a look at those two and say, right, so it's fully parished. You've got an area council. You've got Barnsley.
What Penistone members
combined authority
did, yeah. What Penistone members did actually, instead of having 2 ward alliances, they joined that up to have 1. So they got 1 area council and 1 ward alliance across the whole Penistone area, which was their choice, and they didn't stop them doing it. So which is interesting. They engaged the parish council through that. I mean, the other bit you need to be careful, because everybody will mention is what's the politics of it all as well. It's probably a bit different in Barnsley than it is here. But in order to do this, you've also got to be prepared to manage the politics. So in Penistone, 6 members, 4 are Conservative, 2 Labour. So we've had to make that work. And so I select the chairs of the area councils as part of my leader role, because I pick the cabinet and pick the chairs of them. I didn't particularly want that role, but the members decided I would have it. So but I do say, well, whether the opposition are in a majority, they'll chair their area, which they do in Penistone. And we try and make it work cross-party. And I know in some areas of mine isn't cross-party, but some areas are. We try and make that work, and we try and make it work on consensus at both Ward Alliance and area, particularly Ward Alliance. And we have a disputes procedure in case the members fall out. So there's a disputes procedure. Well, in the end, sometimes, but you don't want a position where in a Ward Alliance, say you've got 2 Labour members and 1 opposition, or vice versa.
Yeah.
We're 2-1 in everybody. Well, keep 2-1 in them. Well, we'll show them. It didn't work. So it's about getting consensus.
We don't understand.
If you can't get consensus,
we don't understand that here, do we? Because
Gemma and I do.
but it's a question you have to answer on any governance model. Because the first thing I would do is, for the politics, who's in charge? Well, in a sense, Labour's in charge of that, so we know that. But actually, we try and make it work. And actually, in Penistone, they engage the Labour members. It's a Conservative majority. In Dodworth Ward Alliance, it's 2 independents and 1 Labour, but they make it work. Yeah. So we don't want people 2-1 in them, or 4-2 in them, or 6-3 in them, or whatever it turns out to be. You're trying to build up with the community what matters. Now people fall out, of course they do. We have a disputes procedure and say, all right, if it's not working, we'll take it through the procedure and we'll get an answer out of that. So it's trying to force people to say, come on, let's try not to be... We are adversarial in council. We have a go at each other. We're the same as anybody else. But when we come down to the wards and the area-based stuff, it's about trying to build that consensus around what matters. Because you'll only engage communities if you do that. Communities think they're getting ridden one way or another. They don't like it. They don't like it.
Okay. Any further questions?
No, that was going to be my question actually, how to handle politics. But you answered that already.
Yeah, very well. I mean, it's easy for me. We are not as evenly split as you are here. And politics will always be there, let's not kid ourselves. So I'm not going to hide away from that. And Labour will want to get elected, and Conservatives will want to get elected, and the Dems will want to get elected, and whatever, and that's fine. But equally, there's times when you just got to park that for a bit and do what.
But the appearances you've taken the opportunity to do that from the position you've been in, which is really noticeable.
Sometimes it's easy, sometimes you're a big majority to do that.
But not everybody takes the opportunity to do that, do they?
Well, I like to think our opposition members are supportive of what we've done. And I think if you did go to Penistone Forum, the Conservative, they would come back and say, this has worked pretty well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Most appreciated.
No, and good luck with it.
Thank you.
Hope you managed to get something out.
We'll see what comes out the
Well,
other.
as I say, if you want to come over to Barnsley, see what we're doing, it's fine. We're not the only one. There are different models here. Just so we do it one way. The reason we didn't put services into our development was so there wasn't conflict between the centre and the area. The centre's running the services. The areas are running the services they commission.
Yeah.
And that hard Brexit split has helped make it work. The members still influence the central services as they always would, but we don't get Cabinet wants to cut this area saying you can't. No, we deal with the central services through the central processes, which involve our members.
All areas have done that. It's the division between
That's
the core.
it's clear and who's doing what and who's responsible for what. Other areas haven't. It's been much softer. If you go to Oldham, it's a much softer split. So it depends what you've got and how you want to work it.
I think South Somerset devolved all their refuse collection once, and then they brought it all. Yeah, but then it's a long time ago, and then they ended up bringing it all back in.
I remember the Walsall model years ago as well.
Okay, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks very much,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Much
Thanks.
appreciated.
Good. Let me get something from it.
So are we